Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome back to our class. Let's start our activities today with Basmalah. Before, let us introduce ourselves. We are from 4th group. The members are Fatkhu Firramadani, Anisah Nailil Istiqlaliah, and Elsa Milenia Febrianti. Okay, my friends, what will we are talking about? For the first is the definition of clause as representation. For the next is the process and each participants. And the last but not least is the circumstance.
The first one is the definition of clause as representation. Clause as representation. Dealing with Thomas and Mariel Bloor 2004, page 132, the meaning of the clause as a representation is a meaning in the clause that is shown up by three elements: the process, participant, and the circumstance. The next is the elements of clause as representation. The first one is process, participants, and circumstance. We will step to the second part, the processes and their participant. The processes and the participant. Process is usually indicated by a verb, so it's called verbal group. Halliday stated the process elements consist of the process itself, participant, and circumstance. Even those elements are the elements of clause as representation, they are related to each other. The process consists of 1. Material process, 2. Mental process, 3. Verbal process, 4. Behavior process, 5. Relational process, and 6. Existential process. The first process is material process. The material process is a process related to doing something and being done by the participant. So, participants who do work in the process are called actors, while participants who are subject to work are called goals. Material process consists of actor and goal. Like the example, the lion as actor, cow as material process, and the meat as goal. The second process is mental process. Mental process is a process related to feeling, but also thinking and knowing. In this process of feeling, participants who feel is called sensors, while those who are felt is called phenomenon. We can look at the example. Mary liked the gift. Mary as sensor, like as mental process, and the gift as phenomenon.
Verbal process. This is a large category that not only includes the different modes of saying, but also semantic process that are not necessarily verbal. The central participant is the sayer. The verbiage is what is said, and the target or receiver is the person it is said to. Okay, my friends, please stare to the example to understand about the verbal process. Armeli told me a story. Farida said it. Mungkin teman-teman masih ingat apakah itu verbiage. Verbiage bisa disimpulkan sebagai apa yang telah disampaikan oleh the sayer. Behavioral process. Behavior, they are expressed by verbs such as love, frown, listen, think. As distinct from other groups, only one participant is required. The person doing the laughing, frowning. This participant is the term behavior. The conscious being like the sensor, but the process is more like one of doing.
Relational processes. Relational processes are concerned with being, possessing, and becoming. Relational process is a process about the state or existence of someone or something. The main meaning of this clause is that something or someone is blah blah blah. There are three types of relational processes: intensive, circumstantial, and possessive. Intensive type means X is A. Circumstantial type means X is at A. And possessive type means X has A. Then, the three types come into two modes. There are attributive and identifying. Attributive mode means A is an attribute of X, and identifying mode means A is the identity of X. With regard to the types of relational processes, we must know that the intensive type establishes a relationship of sameness between two entities. Then, the circumstantial type defines the entity in terms of location, time, manner, and other adverb or prepositional phrase. In this process, adverb and prepositional phrase not act as circumstance but act as participant. And the last, the possessive type indicates that one entity owns another. Then, with regard to the modes of relational processes, we must know that in the attributive mode, an attribute is ascribed to an entity, whereas in the identifying mode, an entity is used to identify another. An identifying process permits the participants to be reversed, together with a corresponding change in grammatical function. The participants can be reversed in one of two ways: by the more swapping or of position, or through specification. An attributive process generally doesn't allow the participant to be reversed. Unfortunately, it sometimes does. The crucial difference, however, is this: the grammatical function of the participants will always remain unchanged, whether or not they can be reversed. Also, it might be helpful for you to note that an attributive process can never undergo pacification. The participants of relational processes. In relational processes, we have identifying mode and attributive mode. Each of them has two participants. Identifying mode has identifier or value and identifier or token. Identifier or value refers to a participant which identify or describe other participants, whereas identifier or token refers to a participant which is identified or described by identifier. Then, in attributive mode, we have attribute or class and carrier or member. Carrier or member refers to a participant which is part of a certain class, while attribute or class refers to a participant which belongs to the class that the carrier enters. In this case, the attribute doesn't specify the definition of the carrier, but only states which class the carrier is in. The examples of relational processes. Please look at the table. There are some examples of relational processes. In here, I will only explain one or two examples. We have a sentence: Tom is the leader. This is identifying mode. Tom, as identified or token, is as process, and the leader as identifier or value. And then, in attributive mode, We have a sentence, the computer belongs to Ahmad. The computer, as a carrier or member, belongs to as a process, Ahmad as attribute or class. I hope you will learn it by yourself. Existential process. Existential process is a process that represents something exists or happens. In these cases, what we are doing is affirming the existence of something or someone. In these clauses, there acts as a grammatical subject, but it doesn't fulfill any function outside of its grammatical role. The only significant element is the thing or person being affirmed as existing, the system, the existent. So, the participant of existential process is existence. The examples of existential processes. Now, look at the table. We have existential verbs that are hang, was, and seem. In here, I will only explain one sentence. We have a sentence, on the wall there hangs a picture. On the wall as a circumstances, there as grammatical subject, hangs as a process, and a picture as existent. From this example, we know that existential process just has one participant, that is existent.
Now, we are going to discuss about the circumstance. Contribute additional and frequently optional information regarding the who, when, where, how, for how long, and so on of the process. Circumstance consists of two, adverse and prepositional phrase. For instance, look at the sentence, yesterday they got married. Yesterday as circumstance, they as participant, and got married as process. According to Holiday, circumstance have main types: A. Extent and location, B. Manner, C. Cause, D. Accompaniment, E. Matter, and the last is role.
The first circumstance is extent and location. Extent and location can be spatial and temporal. Spatial shows distance and place, while temporal shows duration and time, so that extent can be marked with interrogative forms how far, how long, how many, and how many times, whereas location can be marked with the interrogative form where and when. The second circumstance is manner. Manner refers to several subcategories, namely means, quality, and comparison. Means refers to a device or means that causes a process to occur. In general, means are expressed with prepositional phrases that use the prepositions by or with. For example, Priya beat the pig with the stick. The underlined word is prepositional phrase. So, a phrase with the stick is a circumstance in the sentence. Then, quality. Quality is usually expressed with the adverb curve, with the adverb and ly as the core. Interrogative or question word to find out quality is how, plus the adverb. For example, it was snowing heavily. The underlined word is heavily. So, heavily is the circumstance in the sentence. The last is comparison. Comparisons are usually expressed with prepositional phrases that use like or unlike. In addition, comparison can also be expressed by adverb groups that show similarities or differences. For example, it went through my head like an earthquake. Like an earthquake is a circumstance in the sentence. The third circumstance is cause. Cause consists of several subcategories, namely reason, purpose, and behalf. Reason shows the reasons for a process. These reasons are usually expressed by the preposition through, because of, as a result of, thanks to, and of, which have as for prepositions. For example, blah 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 die of starvation. Of starvation is a circumstance of the sentence. And then purpose. Purpose shows the aim of an action, namely the intent in it. Purpose is characterized by the use of prepositional phrases that use for or complex prepositions such as in the hope of and for the purpose of. The interrogative for purpose is what for. For example, Agung and Rama went nearer to watch them. To watch them is the circumstance in this sentence. And the last is behalf. Behalf shows an interest that is directed to someone or another entity. Behalf can be expressed by a prepositional phrase that uses for. For example, pray for Indonesia. For in this sentence is the circumstance that shows
Accompaniment. These elements represent the meaning of and, or, and without. Prepositional phrases commonly used in accompaniment are with, without, besides, and instead of. Okay, my friends, please look at the example, especially for the underlined word. For the first, Dia set out with her umbrella. For the second, pardon me, in here have some mistake. Further, came without anjar is the correct one, and the underlined word is without. For the last but not least, Sophie came instead of anjar. For the next circumstance is matter. Matter can answer the question what about. Commonly used in this circumstance are prepositional phrases such as about, concerning, with reference, and of. For the example, Fauzia worry about Ahsan's health. And the next, he kept quiet on the subject of compensation for the loss. For the last circumstance is rule. Rule can answer the question what as. The preposition can be used as by way of, in the rule, shape, cause, from of. For the example, Muhain come here as a friend. For the next, they leave the place by way of protest. Okay, my friends, maybe until here our discussion today. We are so sorry if you found some mistake during our class. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Akhiran wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.